describe to me like those recruits that you are looking for as the appropriate fit for you
Yeah.
and your team. What are some things that you guys are looking for from obviously there's the big ones like the physiological characteristics, erg scores, height and weight and things like that. And maybe you can dive, shed a little bit of light for athletes who are trying to be for a potential, NCAA contender and be a contributing factor in those boats. But then also like the intangible qualities that you and your staff are seeking in some of these athletes and some of those things that athletes can, as they put themselves in the shoes of people who want to be there someday,
Yeah.
Shed a little bit of light on that if you don't mind.
So I think it's early on in my coaching career when I was still kind of figuring out how to be a head coach. I was at GW. I was infatuated with numbers, and you talked about the base physiology is obviously a metric that we all look at. What's your height, what's your weight, what's your erg. Sometimes they throw in wingspan, so I was enjoy seeing that. But for us, that was something I was really infatuated with. But I just felt like I needed better engines, and I didn't really care the form it came in, and the form being, the program that you come from, right? The pedigree of the program you come from, the basic athleticism of that athlete. Is are they fast on the erg, but you put them in a boat, put them on a track, and they're not as athletic as you need them to be. Those are things that early on I was really infatuated. And I got burned a couple times, not many, but a couple times where I went for a number and the athlete was culturally a really bad fit, and it was a really challenging time period in my coaching where having to remove an athlete and an athlete that wasn't right for the program it's a hard thing to do. And so I've shifted very much. We bring in recruited classes. The class 2 years ago went from 705 to 740. That was the range of athletes that we brought in. And those athletes went from 5'6" up to 6'1", 6'1.5". And so right there you see that there's no specific number that we're searching for. You have to be this, you have to be this. I would say that the last year's class was a bit more homogenous in nature. A lot of 720s, the 728s, 7 of them in that range. That just happened to land that way. And so it really is not one number. But yes, of course, we look for what's your engine like, and that engine should be spoken about in the first email you send a coach. We get these emails that are this chapter 4 chapters of information, and somehow, some way in those chapters, it's missing one piece of information, which is your ERG score. And so just a quick shout out. I love all that stuff. We as college coaches love to see all the things you've been doing, but just also include the base numbers, regardless of how proud you are or not as proud of those numbers. That it gives us an idea of where you're at, and can kind of guide communication a little bit moving forward. But for us, we look at kind of a handful of other details. Obviously height, weight, erg, basics, right? If they have a 5K run time, we like that too, because we do a lot of 5K running in the fall. 5K, 6K, we can extrapolate from those. Those are great. Hour powers, 10K ergs, easy to extrapolate. Any kind of data is awesome. We can kind of pull what we need to pull from that. Then we look at kind of the program that they're from. What have they been surrounded by over the last 4 years? Are they a big fish in a small pond? A small fish in a big pond? What is that recruit like? What have they been surrounded by? What are they going to be used to? And is that going to be a big leap when they come into our system? A bit of a shock, right? When they're surrounded by like, oh shit, I'm not the best, or I need to lead. I am the best. Right? I'm no longer surrounded by these amazing athletes that have all kind of. Now I'm stepping in the system. I'm now the fastest erg. I have to be a leader now, whether I want it or not. And so looking at that, what's the DNA of their program? How is that program doing? Who they've been coached by? we always, it's a very simple thing we do, a 60-second video on the erg. 30 seconds easy, 30 seconds max at 26 from the side. And rather than this emotional mom video, where you're hearing them scream for Jane or whatever the name, the video is bouncing up and down, I'd rather see an up close and personal just on the erg. You know it. You do it in your space, in your garage, right? Just basic fundamental movement. What's their capacity to have good choreography in the front end, maintain good posture on the erg, and then when they add heat to it, does it break? Does it change? Right? And so we look at that video, program they're from, pedigree, talk to the coach. A big thing for us is kind of who they are on the team. What's their body language like when things are really good? It's easy to have good body language and be excited about what's happening. But when things get tough, when an athlete doesn't have an erg score, right, yet their partner right next to him has their PR piece by 10 seconds, what's their demeanor in that moment to celebrate and lift up that athlete to their right, or to sit there and sulk in their single moment point of data, which they're going to have many, many more during their 4 years. And so finding out, what's their body language like in those moments, what's their willingness and ability to be great teammates. And so those are all things that we can find out from coach. That's why I like a basketball coach. Talking to a basketball coach, what are they like when they're on the bench? What's their demeanor like when they're sitting down and coach looks down, whether they want to put them in or not? Are they cheering for the person that just scored, or are they sulking? And so those things matter to us. We exist in a sport where there are far more losers than there are winners.